Hello, good morning. Can you hear me, everyone?
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Patricia. Yeah, we can hear you clearly.
Oh, great. Good morning. Good to see everyone. Good morning, Prof. Nice to see you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, patients.
Good morning, Prof. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see everyone again this month. We are delighted to be hooking up with you again. This is the WIC Network. It is a capacity building platform principally for women and postgraduate students in the built environment. It provides a very strong support system for women academics in the construction-related fields as they navigate through their academic career. We meet online every month to touch base and to learn how to improve our career outcomes. Today we have a very we will be having a very insightful and interesting webinar. The title of the webinar is Balancing Research, Teaching, and Family Life. This is a topic that is very dear and of significance to career people, particularly women. And this is because of their natural caregiving role. We know that many times we struggle to balance between work, family, and at times people lean towards family more at the expense of work. Even though if you ask me what I would choose family 1,000 times, but then there has to be a way that will balance our work and family so that none suffers. Even though our family is very important, so we find that work is also very important because it is work that gives us the financial freedom to be able to take care of our family, particularly if one is not too financially independent. So work is really critical. It also gives you the sense of value, the sense of dignity. You don't want to look like you don't want to be a burden to anybody. So if work is not going well, it can also affect your mental health, your mental well-being. So work is critical as well. So also family is important. So we need to know how to balance this. And for us in the academia, we have a third part, which is research. And for those of us in academic, we know what that part entails and what are tied to it. Promotion is tied to it. Advancement is tied to it. So for those of us in the academia, we need to learn how to balance not just the work. Teaching in the higher institution is not just like teaching in high school or teaching in the primary school. It's not just going to work and teaching and coming back. There's that research part of it. So we are looking at these three sides of the triangle that will make us more effective at our work and also in family life. So that's what we've come to learn today. And we have four amazing women who will be speaking to this topic from different perspectives. These women are different career levels. They are also of different age grades, and they will speak to us based on their own experience and how they perceive this issue, what they have gone through, how they have been able to manage and succeed in what they are doing in spite of the challenges they have gone through. Yeah, so we'll be listening to them today. And in no particular order, I would like to really acknowledge all the speakers, particularly starting with Professor Florence Ling. Professor Florence Ling she's a professor in the Department of the Built Environment at the National University of Singapore. She's an amazing personality. Beyond her person, she has been able to contribute significantly to research and in the field of the built environment. When you compare women in construction, in academics in construction and other fields like life sciences or physical sciences or even the management sciences, for those other fields, you have more women, but in the construction field, we don't have many women. And when we see some of them that are making strides, we are extremely proud of what they do. And to confirm this, she's ranked as one of the 2% women. No, one of the 2% researchers when you compare her between men and women, all together. She's ranked as one of the 2% researchers in the field of the built environment. You see, that is not a mere feat at all. And we don't take this for granted that she's here to speak with us. Ma, we celebrate you and we are inspired by your strides. So we'll be listening to Professor Ling today as she speaks to us about her perspective on these issues, what she has how she has been able to, navigate through in spite of the demands, the necessary demands that had come her way. And we also have Sanchia Alasia. Sanchia is a diversity, equality, and inclusion expert. She currently works as the head of the EDI at the London South Bank University in the UK. She's also the managing director of Sanchia Consulting. She has received several international awards for her work on diversity and inclusion. And we'll be listening to Sanchia today. She'll be talking to us how organizations, particularly universities, can help women help them have this balance, and also how they can make the academic environments more inclusive for staff. We also have with us, speaking with us today, Dr. Bukola Adewale. She's a very dear colleague back here at home in Nigeria. She's an associate professor of architecture, and she also has very robust experience, and she'll also be speaking to us from her own perspective. She'll be adding value to this topic. Then I have my very dear mentee, Ruhama Miju. She'll also be speaking to us today from our own perspective, adding some spice to this, speaking to us from our own experience, what she has experienced so far as a young academic. She's from the Department of Civil Engineering at Jimma University, Ethiopia. So we are grateful to all of you, Mas, for finding time to speak to us today. We don't take this for granted. We can understand your very tight schedules, and in spite of that, you still chose to speak with us. We are grateful. To the rest of us, please sit back and feel free to put your questions in the chat and or your comments. And I know we're going to have an exciting 1 hour, 2 hours discussion. Thank you so much. We'll learn we'll learn more about our speakers very shortly from their biography. Thank you so much. Sandra, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Dr. Pat. Moving on to the biographies of our speakers. First, we have Professor Florence Ling. Allow me to share my screen in a bit. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Great, thank you. So Professor Florence Ling is a full professor in the Department of the Built Environment at the National University of Singapore. Up to 2020, Professor Ling has had university-wide responsibilities as Vice Associate Provost, Dean of Residential Colleges, Vice Dean, Director of the Undergraduate Program, and member of the Faculty Promotion and Tenure Committee. Prof. Ling's research is in construction project management, focusing on improving project performance, productivity, and work outcomes, and human resource management. She has published more than 160 international referee journal papers. She's the joint editor of the Built Environment Project and Asset Management Journal, editorial board member of International Journal of Project Management and Project Management Journal. She is ranked in the top 2% scientists in the field of built environment. Professor Ling teaches cost estimating, project management, and project feasibility. She has garnered numerous teaching excellence awards, and she's a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. Our next speaker is Sanchia Alasia. Sanchia is a multi-award-winning and distinguished global equity, diversity, and inclusion practitioner, public speaker, and community change maker with a reputation for driving systematic and sustainable change towards fostering inclusive environments. She has worked across the public sector for over the last 15 years to help move organizations towards being truly inclusive, valuing their staff, and creating a culture where staff feel supported, appreciated, and respected. She currently works as the head of equality, diversity, and inclusion at London South Bank University and the Managing Director of Sanchia Consulting Limited, where she is committed to promoting equitable and inclusive practices for the university and her clients. She is a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, Fellow of the Chartered Management Institute, Fellow of the Royal Society for Arts, Management and Commerce, and Fellow of the Institute for Educational and Social Equity. She was elected as a councillor to Barking and Dangenham Council in 2010, a role she held until 2021, was the first of 3 Black women to be elected there. She held a number of positions: school governor, chair of the Health and Adult Services Scrutiny Committee, and chair of the Planning Committee. She was the first Caribbean female civic mayor there in 2018, and she stood for the European Parliament elections twice in 2014 and 2019. Sanchia has won numerous awards, including being highly commended as HR Champion of the Year in the British Diversity Awards in 2023, winner as Outstanding Public Sector Figure at the Precious Awards in 2020, and as one of the top 100 most influential, impactful, and successful African entrepreneurs, African business leaders by the African Chamber of Commerce in 2022. She was also named as one of 50 most inspirational Black women in the UK during Black History Month in 2019. Her consultancy has won Best HR and Diversity Consultant 2023, London, in the SME News, Southern Enterprise Awards, is a silver winner of Website of the Year at the London Chamber of Commerce SME London Business Awards 2024, and won HR and Diversity Consultant of the Year at the Corporate Livewire Global Awards 2023-2024. This attests to her exemplary leadership and unyielding commitment to EDI. Our third speaker is Dr. Bukola Adewale. Dr. Adewale is an associate professor in the Department of Architecture with nearly 17 years of working experience at Covenant University, a world-class institution. After receiving her PhD, she actively engaged in research over the years, leading to the publication of over 60 articles, both locally and internationally. She has mentored younger faculty members in Nigeria, Europe, and Asia, and has supervised over 30 master's and doctoral students. Her prior work demonstrates that she has contributed to joint collaborations and publications with seasoned scholars outside Nigeria. Last but not least, we have Ruhama Beyene. Ruhama Beyene is a lecturer and researcher at the Faculty of Civil and Environmental Engineering of the Jimma University in Ethiopia. She has a master's degree in geotechnical engineering and a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. Driven by her passion for sustainable and environmentally friendly construction trends, her research activities focus on sustainable construction materials and use of recycled and natural aggregates for soil stabilization. In addition, Ruhama is an active participant in community development projects in her society and dedicates her time to empower youth by providing trainings on social and emotional intelligence. Thank you, Dr. Pett. I will hand the floor back over to you.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for helping read out the citations of our speakers. Thank you. So can you just please stop sharing, please? Great. Before we move on to the discussion, I would just like to very quickly recognize some persons amongst us. I would like to recognize my very revered mentor, Professor George Ofori of the London South Bank University. I would also like to recognize Dr. Intembo Gozama. She's Director of Research and Development at the Construction Industry Development Board of South Africa. Dr. Ntebo is one of the board members of WIC. So also is Professor Florence Ling, They are both board members. They help to steer the leadership, help us to steer the leadership of WAIC behind the scene. So for so many of the good works you see us do, they are the brain behind it. So thank you so much, Maz, and thank you, Professor Ofori, for your support every time. Thank you so much. So we'll just move on to our discussion. We'll start with Ruhama. Ruhama will be speaking to us about the struggles of a young mother. So let's hear Ruhama. Ruhama, you have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks so much. It's really a great honor to be here today to share my experience with very distinguished professionals here in WEC. And thank you so much for the professor for giving me this opportunity and also for helping me being my mentor and guiding me a lot. It's a great inspiration to be here with you today. Today I will be sharing with you my experience in regards to struggles of being a young mother and balancing teaching, research, and family life in the field of construction. So first, let me just share with you a few things about my personal life, because most of the things I share here with you today will be from my personal experience and experience of other mothers who are working here with me in Juma University. So I have a master's degree in geotechnical engineering. I'm a mother of one. I have a 5-year-old son, and I had my son when I was a master's student in Juma University. So at that time, it was a very difficult time for me. It was difficult for me to balance being a mother and also the graduate study and doing my research. So I had to take off a 1-year leave just to take care of my son. So so most of the things I share with you today will be from my personal experience and the things I've gone through during the time I've taken a 1-year break from my studies, and also the challenges I've faced working in a developing country where most of the academics and also the higher officials in our institutes where I work are mostly dominated by men. And to give you some context relating to my experience, when I was a student in Juma University, I have had not even a single lecturer who is a female. I've never gotten the chance to be instructor or to have a senior who can help us to navigate through the challenges that we may face when we are academicians. Like I said earlier, it's not just teaching, it's also research. And for this, I want to extend again my gratitude to Women Academy Construction, that will help us a lot, young mothers and younger females in the developing countries who will not get the chance to get help from seniors in their country. So thank you again for this. So when we come to the struggles of young mothers, the first one is the challenge that we face from the society, like the not being accepted by our peers, even including our students. This comes from the experience of the students. Most of the time, female teachers are only teaching in lower grades, lower elementary grades, and most of the time, females are focused on other aspects. In physics, they will not see female teachers even in their secondary school. So when they come to higher education and we see female instructors in fields that are mostly considered in the society to be more dominated and favored for male, they will find it too difficult to accept that we are capable to deliver the course, even from the student's perspective. So the first struggle starts from working extra hours and putting extra efforts to be accepted by our peers, by our students, and by our supervisors. So this challenge is even difficult for when we become mothers. Being a female by itself has its own struggles when you are in developing countries, like I told you earlier, because of the inexperience or the lack of acceptance for females. In addition to this, when we became a mother, there is always a challenge. The first one is being a mother and being a young mother, inexperienced and taking care of infants or navigating parenthood by itself is one of the challenges. For this, most of the time we go through we feel like we have to choose either our career or our child. That's what happened to me. So when I became a young mother, I was put in a situation where I have to choose from continuing my education or taking a leave from my classes and focus on my kids. That's what most of my friends go through. So when we became a mothers, automatically we are kept in a situation, or we are put in a situation where we have to choose either from our career or from taking care of our parents. This is true in almost every household, because not only taking care of the child as well as doing other housework or house chores is also the responsibility of the mother. So most of the time we are forced to choose from going to class or working and taking care of our children. So I'll come back to that later. So this is one of the challenges. In addition to this, we don't have the support system that's needed. We may be away from our families and relatives, so we may not get the necessary support system that we need to take care of our child. And this feeling of not being able is very overwhelming. And I know that some of my colleagues who have been victim of postpartum depression, there is a high emotional toll that comes with being a young mother and a professional if you don't have someone in your family to support you. Most of us here are not close to our families and relatives, so we carry all this burden on our shoulders, and this results in being depressed. Like I told you, there are some of my colleagues who are going through postpartum depression. This comes from lack of inexperience, as well as lack of the necessary support systems that will help us to navigate through motherhood. This is the challenge related to being a mother by itself. In addition to this, when you come to work, there is always some expectation from mothers, because our colleagues and our supervisors put us through unnecessary and high expectation and high scrutiny due to the considerations that we are not fit to carry out our works. This may not be true in every part of the country. Maybe it's some of the experiences that I faced, but mostly I can assume that, especially in developing worlds, the things that we may go through are more or less the same. So we are put in constant scrutiny, and we are put in constant checking, and there is sometimes some subtle shades or subtle comments that are given by our peers and our supervisors. This will make us go through a higher emotional stresses. So, like I told you earlier, we have to work triple and double than our peers just to prove ourselves that we are capable of doing the works. So, in addition to this, there is some assumptions about mothers that once you became a mother, you have to quit your job and focus on your child. This is demonstrated through, for example, this some things that I have faced. When there is some opportunity or where there is some positions that we can be part of in our departments, there is some assumptions in our supervisors that now you are a mother and you have to take care of a child and you don't have enough time to balance the responsibilities given to you by the departments and your kids. So by default, they think that you are not able to do these tasks, and they will not just give you the opportunities. So this has happened to me once. I've shared this experience before in the mentorship group. When I asked my immediate supervisors for some roles in the department that would help me for my professional development, I was told that, oh, I thought that you would take care of your child and you will not have enough time to do this and that. This seems like he's positive person. When you see, it seems like a positive response. It seems like this person is thinking good for me, like giving me more time to take care of my child. But when you see in the long run, it will affect most women. I think this is the reason why in the Department of Civil Engineering, there is only one female who is a position holder of the chair of structural engineering. Other female staffs are only focusing on the teaching, and they are not given the necessary opportunity to be faculty position holders. This will affect the professional development of females. And when we see this as an outsider, it seems like the company or the person a favor for the female, but in the long run, this will affect the professional development of females. For this matter, in the departments that I'm working on, there is no female staff that is an associate or a full professor in our department. We are just lecturers. This comes from the lack of opportunity, and this lack of opportunity comes from the pre-assumptions that we have to take care of our kids and that we may not have enough time and that we may not be productive even if the opportunity is given to us. This assumption is supervisors also some attitude towards young mothers like me who are working in research and in academics. So this is the other challenge that young mothers face in regards to being a researcher and academician. In addition to this, the work that we do as a lecturer or as an academician is different from other types of works. For example, if I'm a banker or if I'm a nurse, the work that I do is only in the office work. I don't have to take my work to home with me. But now my work does not end in the class. My work have to come with me to my home. I have to prepare materials, I have to read, always have to keep updated, I have to write, I have to edit my papers. All this work will not end during the daytime, so I have to bring this to my personal life. For this, most of the female instructors, if they don't have the enough adequate support from their spouses or their families, will be judged by the society, because due to our the culture of our work, we don't have enough time to socialize like the rest of the women in our society. When I tell you this, it may not be the same to other developing countries or other cultures, but here in my culture in Ethiopia, social life will have a big part of our life. We have to visit those who are sick. We have to visit those whose parents or relatives has passed away, and it's not just going to visit one day, not just once. We have to stay there the whole time, like 2 weeks or more than that. More than that, sometimes. This is the culture in Ethiopia. Okay, so due to the tight schedule and the nature of our work, we can't engage in such social activities like the rest of the women in our community. This will create a big burden on young mothers who are working in construction related activities. The other issue that I want to raise here is that the organizational or institutional setup in most higher education does not support young mothers. For example, there is a rigid time schedule. There is, most of the time, there is no facilities like daycare where we can keep our kids, take our kids to work with us and keep them there. There is no such facilities in most of the higher educational institutes in our country. This institutional or organizational challenges are adding burden to young mothers. I hope that we will raise this issue, because one of the topics that will be discussed here today is what can organizations and what can higher educational institutions do to support mothers. These facilities are not common in Ethiopia. I don't know about the other countries, but here these facilities that will take care of child like daycares are not common in workplaces, and this will add an additional burden to the mothers. Since I've almost raised most of the challenges, let me talk like I've said, like this is the burden, this is a challenge, this is the struggles that we have to go through in our day-to-day life. But also I want to raise from my experience what we can do and how we can navigate through this from my personal experience. So the first thing I suggest is having a good support system. Friends or family will help young mothers to navigate on balance work and family. For this, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to my co-workers and my co-authors. We have published few papers together. Working together as a team, having the necessary support system from family and colleagues will help a mother to navigate teaching, research, and family. So if not for my friends who have who are my co-authors. We worked on different research projects. They understand my situation and they support me a lot. So I want to extend my thanks to some of them who are very helpful to me, and if not for them, it may be difficult for me. So having the necessary support system, having the necessary the peaceful work environment will help a mother to navigate the challenge of the balance between the family and career. In addition, I think some of the things that we have to do is asking for help. Most of the time, asking for help is considered as a failure or as a shame in our community, but that's not the case. I believe that when we are going through something, we have to ask for help from our friends, our families. For this, I want to thank my parents. They are helping me in taking care of my child. And sometimes, as mothers, we have to acknowledge that there is challenge. We cannot just go through everything by ourselves. So acknowledging the challenge that we face and asking for help from the right person will help a mother to navigate the challenge of work-life balance. This is very important. The other one that I consider to be helpful from my experience is having the support group, which means having the right relationship with people who are going through the same challenge that I'm going through. For example, there are mothers in my area or in my school, there are mothers who teach with me. Having them was one of the things that helped me, because when I go to work, she will look for my kid. She will not judge me like the other people because she is going through the same thing that I am going through. Having these people around us who are going through the same challenge that we go through is a great solution to balancing work and life. This has helped me a lot personally. So having the support group is important. In addition to this, I think wherever we are, we have to advocate for a better facilities for that will support young mothers. We have to be advocates in our community to bring a positive change in institutional levels, especially those of you who are seniors and who have the platform should be advocates for young mothers like us who are to face this challenge day to day. Being advocate for a better facility, being advocate for a better environment, this is an important thing that we have to do in our community. I know I'm taking more time, but one last thing that I want to talk about in regards to the challenge of mothers is we have to be resilient. The challenge will not end at some point. It will be a continuous challenge. Even if our even if I managed, for example, I've managed to graduate from graduate school. I know that this challenge is not stopping here. There is a challenge every day that we have to focus. But what's needed from us is to be resilient and to have the time management skills and to have a culture of self-care as mothers. Most of the time, our times are we pass our times in juggling through motherhood and career, and we don't give the necessary time for ourselves. And this has to change, I hope. And we have to give our time for self-care, taking time for ourselves, doing whatever makes us happy. It could be yoga, it could be gym, anything that will help us to have a stable personality that we have to do as young mothers. In addition to being resilient, there is an instinct or a strength in us when we become mothers. There's a strength in us that will give us the potential, or that will give us the drive to work hard. And I think we have to be resilient. We have to give time for ourselves, self-care, and we have to ask help. These are some of the things that I learned going through the experience, and also from the experience of my peers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ruhama, for that, for sharing those thoughts with us. She mentioned that, just in a brief, she mentioned the challenges that she's gone through so far and how she had been able to manage. She, just to mention some of them, she said, as a young woman, the fact that students don't even believe in you, male students don't believe in you. And she's talking now contextually now, regarding her own context. You know, the students don't believe in you because you're a woman, your peers don't believe in you because you're a woman. And then also the fact that when you now have kids, or you have a child, they want you to take time off. And she's saying that is like a double-edged sword. It's like at one point they're saying stay back, at the other point it might not help you so much, because if you stay back too long, you might not be able to catch up. Okay. And then she talked about the fact that there is no enough institutional frameworks helping women, you know, in the university setup, like having daycare, keeping their kids in school, or just the ambience, okay, of supporting women and making them inclusive. Thank you so much, Ruhama, for those. She also talked about how she has been able to manage, one, by finding a good support system, asking for help, which is very important. Don't seem like you can do it alone. She had to reach out to ask for help. And then she was also asking that senior academics, women, men, should be advocates for younger women, so that we can cushion the effect of what they're going through. And also that by ourselves, we should be resilient. Challenges happen every day. So we have to be resilient, and we also have to remember to take care of ourselves and not to be too immersed in other people's business and not taking care of ourselves. Thank you so much, Ruhama, for those thoughts on this. Thank you so much. So we'll quickly move on to the second panelist, Dr. Bukola Adewale. Ma, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, please permit me to put off my camera because of my fluctuating network.
Okay.
Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So it's my privilege, to be here with us. And thank you, Dr. Pat and our team, for this rare privilege to share my experience about taking care of a sick family member and balancing my, career, as a lecturer and researcher. So I would like to say that the essence of this talk is to encourage younger women or younger academics that are going through what I've gone through, even presently, and to older women too that might be going through what I've gone through. So, and it's to encourage each and every one of us that it is possible for us to step into all-round winning even when the situation is hard. You know, when there is an hard time, it is not impossible for us to set out into all-round winning. So we can win as academics, and we can win as mothers. We can win as wives. We can win all around. So that's the essence of my talk. And just like the first speaker, I'll be sharing from my experience. It's a life experience. Everything I'll be talking about is what I've gone through. But I wouldn't want us to see me as a superwoman. I will not be talking as a superwoman, but I'll be talking as someone who has found grace and favor. So I'll be talking to encourage other people to strive to win, even in the face of trials, in the face of tribulation. And that is the essence of this meeting, to encourage us to strive. Just like the last speaker said, that we have to be resilient, no matter what. We have to make up our mind that I'm going to overcome any negative situation, no matter what. So my experience is about taking care of my husband, who was sick between the year 2018 and year 2020 for 2 solid years. He was on the sick bed. He was critically sick. In fact, it got to a time that we had almost given up. We had almost given up on him. He had given up on himself, you know, until he was help, until we got help. So I'm going to be telling us how we got help. We got help, you know, from several people and so on and so forth. So I will share with us how we got help and how he was able to come out of the sickness. So at the time he was sick, you know, I was a lecturer 1, and I was looking forward to become a senior lecturer because I had stayed in that position for about 4 years. So I was long overdue, you know, for the position of a senior lecturer. But this challenge came up. You know, it was staring me in the face. So what was I supposed to do? Was I to take care of my husband or to take my career? Just like Dr. Pat said in her opening address, that she would pick her home if she has to pick over and over. So I decided to pick my home. I decided to stay with my husband no matter what. So I thought of dropping the idea, you know, of applying for promotion to the post of senior lecturer. But my husband, you know, being a supportive man that he is, you know, told me that he was not going to stand in the way of my lifting. You know, he told me I had to apply no matter what. And the reason why I wanted to drop the idea was that I was deficient in, I think, about 3 or 4 papers. Then, you know, I had to publish like 4 more papers for me to meet up with the promotion criteria. So my husband said, so whatever it would take me, I had to do it. So I agreed with him. You know, I would sit beside his sick bed with my laptop. I would write, you know, I would send it to publishers. They would review, they would send back to me. I would do corrections. I was doing that for days. I was doing it for nights. I wouldn't sleep. And at the same time, I was watching him because I was beside his bed. If there was any move, I would look at, is there any problem? What do you need? He will ask me, are you not sleeping? You have to, no, I said, I must, you know, get through with this thing. So thank God I was able to move to the post of senior lecturer. And also, I would like to raise a point that there were days that I would not be able to go to the office. You know, maybe in the night, in the middle of the night, like sometimes 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m., you know, we would have emergencies, you know, that I would have to rush into the hospital. So what would I do? I had to drop my lecture, you know, for him. But it's not just about dropping my lecture. Of course, I would have to call a colleague that this is what has happened. Please, I will need your help to stand in the gap for me. I have 8 o'clock lecture, and thank God for good support system, just like the last speaker said. They would always oblige me. They would do my lectures for me. You know, I had wonderful colleagues, wonderful support system. So this takes me to what I did, you know, to come out of this trouble or to balance my career. You know, mind you, I said I wanted to drop my promotion, you know, the idea of applying for senior lecturer. And I had to sustain it because of my husband's idea. So, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy task. But what are the things I did, you know, to uphold this? You know, I will be talking about 3 factors that helped me through the challenging time. The first one is the God factor, which we can't deny because we are spirit beings. The first factor was God. And the second factor, I termed it man factor. That's the second factor, man factor. Then the third one is self factor. So I will take the factors one by one briefly. I'll be speaking to them briefly. I won't take much of our time. So the God factor. So at the time I was going through the challenge, I was almost giving up, like I told you, that we gave up on my husband, he gave up on himself. But it got to a time that I had to sit. You know, I had to sit quietly on my home without disturbance. You know, I had to ask myself, what is the way out? There has to be a way out of this. So God gave me a scripture in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 13. I will read it. Please permit me to read, and I'll be referring to other scriptures as well. So this 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 13 says, there is no temptation taking you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able. But with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. So this is the scripture that kept me throughout the trying time. So when the Lord opened my eyes to this scripture, I would wake up in the morning, the first thing I read is this 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. I would read it to my husband. It became a anchor scripture. You know, we would read it like 7 times a day. We read it whenever there is doubt, there is fear, we would pick up the scripture and read it. And thank God, the scripture really helped us to weather the storm because it was a big storm. So the next factor I'll talk about is men factor. You know, when the illness started, we thought we could do it all alone. We thought we could manage it alone. You know, but it got to a point that we were overwhelmed, you know, with everything that has to do with the illness, you know, in terms of help, support, financial support, and what have you. So we had to call on friends and family. So we told them what we were going through. You know, I said there were times that I would not be able to come to the office, you know, to do my work as a lecturer and as a researcher. So one of the way men helped me was to take up the assignment, to stand in the gap for me. You know, like I said earlier, they would go for my, you know, they would take my lectures, they would attend to my students on my behalf. And I also had people who would come to the hospital to support me. There were times that these people, I would leave them with my husband in the hospital and go to the office, to attend to my work. And also, we had men that would come to the house to support us. They will help me with cooking, with home chores, to take care of the children. Because then I think I had a 6-year-old. So they would come, they would take him to school and all that. So we had men all around us. Like a saying in my place, that men are the shield I use as cover. Men were really the shield I used as cover at that time. There were men that encouraged me, even spiritually. Dr. Tunji-Olayeni is one of them. She's one of them. I had people that would come to my house to pray. They would do night vigil, they would do all manner. So men are indeed the shield I use as a covering. And I don't want us to forget that, just like the Bible admonishes us, that we should bear one another's body. We had men that bore our body. So thanks to these men, thanks to my colleagues, thanks to my friends, thanks to my family and all my well-wishers. Then the last factor I would like to touch on is self-factor. Self-factor. It is very, very important. It is stepping into all-round winning is not an easy task, but we have to strive to win, as nothing good comes easy. Nothing good comes easy. We can't do it ordinarily. Of course, as men, we have limitations. We have limitations, but we can overcome those limitations when we are determined. So one of the things I did personally was to determine, to come out of that, of the challenge, and to balance between my work and my home. I was determined no matter what, because a lot of people, came with several suggestions. Some even said it to our face that he can't make it. Some said it to our face, that man cannot make it. Some even behind us, a lot said it behind us, that they themselves, they confessed when we came out of the, challenge. But no matter what they were saying then, I made up my mind I was not going to listen to any side talk. I was going to be focused. I was going to be determined. I must come out of it and I must move up the ladder of my profession. So I approach the challenge with determination and diligence. Of course, it was not, enough to determine. I was also diligent. I would do my work, I would publish, I would write, I would prepare my lecture, I would do all I had to do. Mind you, along the way, I also moved from the post of senior lecturer to associate professor, right in the middle. Of course, we came out of it a bit, after 2 years, but the thing lingered onto about 4 years, so I was able to come out of it through determination and diligence. Determination and diligence from my hand. Then the men factor, looking for support, from men. Then the God factor, which is the most important factor. So in conclusion, I said at the beginning that I was not going to talk about or talk as a woman that is super, like a superwoman or somebody that is strong, but I would talk as somebody who has found grace and favor. I would say indeed that I found grace, I found favor, I found mercy from the Lord. So I would like to encourage, people that are in my shoe that may be finding it difficult to balance their family with their work. I want to say that it's easy, and at the same time, it's difficult. But when we approach it with the God factor, with the help of men and self-determination, we can do it. We can make it. We can balance. We can win all round. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adewale. So touching, so touching, honestly. Yeah, moving story. Thank you so much, and thank God you overcame. And for the just to quickly recap, we can win. We can win in the face of any circumstance. And even though any one of us had a loved one that passed, we can still come out of it. We can still come out of it. Let's just find strength. But then the point is, when we have a loved one, it can actually affect our career progress. Like we hear from her story, how she almost thought of not pushing on with her promotion. But in the midst of that, she was able to move from L1 to an associate professor because of the God factor, like she said, the men that stood as pillars for her, and then self-determination. So it's possible that we can actually pull through when going through when a loved one is not feeling too okay. Again, I would like to also say when we find people that are not doing well in their health, please let's be in support. Let's try to reach out. There's no, nothing is too small. It can be our money, it could be our presence, it could be a message. Let's just, just touch them somehow when people are not are indisposed. We'll quickly move on to the the major lecture for today. And because you see, all of these things that are happening, they happen in the space of time. Okay, it will take you time to take care of a loved one. It will take time to take care of family. So how do you time is just the issue here. And for everyone on earth, we all have 24 hours. No one has an extra hour or lesser. So all these things happen in the space of time. So we'll be listening to Professor Ling, how she has been able to manage her time, to become the renowned person she has become today in terms of research, manage putting her family together and all of that. So, Prof, you have the floor, ma.
Dr. Patience, can you see how many slides on the screen now? Is
Yes.
it one or two?
One.
Just one slide?
Yes, one slide.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Patience, for inviting me for this lecture. I'm really thankful for the opportunity, and also feel that it is very privileged to have this opportunity to speak to 40-something of you who have signed in. I want to acknowledge in the audience my mentor and PhD supervisor, Professor George Ofori. Without you, I will not be where I am today. And I also acknowledge my PhD students who have also signed in today to listen to me. Thank you very much. I have also learned a lot from you, as I have from my mentor. And so after hearing about Ruhama's struggle as a young mother and Prof. Adewale's challenge to taking care of her husband, I now want to just talk about time management. I am also not a superwoman at all. So here goes. So firstly, I want to say what is the context of my talk. I want to bring myself back to the time I'm an assistant professor or an associate professor when I was struggling for promotion and tenure, and how I managed time then. So that you do not feel that I'm just sharing with you my time management strategies as a full professor, and then you feel like, oh, how can what she say be applicable to us when she's already a full professor? So no, I'm talking to you as how I was as an assistant professor. The other things I want to contextualize is that I'm speaking from my experience in Singapore, which is a meritocratic environment, and there is no cronyism and no corruption. I know that some of you may exist in a culture where cronyism and corruption may happen. So I do not know about that, because in Singapore, our promotion criteria is really meritocratic. And the third context is that I'm speaking in a context where teaching and research are equally important. Because some of you could belong to teaching universities where research is not so important, but I'm coming from a position where both are very important, and also that the lecturer has a adequate and competitive pay package. So that's because some of the recommendations I'm giving, you need to spend money. In terms of home environment, I want to tell you that during my time as an associate professor, what was it that I was facing? I was teaching full-time as a lecturer and doing part-time PhD supervised by Professor Ofori. And in the midst of my PhD, I got pregnant after 8 years of marriage. So you may think, why can't she plan herself better, but I waited 8 years. I waited 8 years before I was pregnant. So it was not something that I purposely planned right in the middle of my PhD. But my baby came out 10 weeks premature, and he had to stay in baby ICU for 7 weeks. And he was on the dangerously ill list for 7 weeks. So I went through my post-pregnancy crying and doing my PhD and crying and doing my PhD. And of course, I had maternity leave from the university for, I think, 2 months. And in the context that I'm explaining, I'm also married, and at that time, my husband was working long hours. I have a paid helper, so that helped a lot. But I have no family support because both my husband and I were from Malaysia, staying in Singapore, and our family members are all in Malaysia. So with this context, I now want to share with you what I was up to at that time as an assistant professor. So this is the framework of which I'm going to share my time management, and it is from Stephen Covey, called the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And apparently this 2x2 matrix came from President Dwight Eisenhower of his decision principle. So as you can see, there are 4 quadrants. The first one is things that are important and urgent. So tasks that require immediate attention, like when your baby is very ill and you need to bring the baby to hospital, and crucial for your goals and well-being. So for an academic staff, this would be teaching because we have deadlines. The second quadrant, number 2, are tasks that are important but actually not urgent. So they are for long-term success but no immediate deadline. So for this, for us, it would be our research. Nobody is telling you must publish tomorrow. It is a timeline that is go and get yourself publications in 3 years. So the deadline is not immediate. And the third quadrant is important, not important tasks, but very urgent. So this would be things like answering phone calls that if my phone suddenly rings now, and my banker wants to talk to me about my finances, the phone is ringing, so it's very urgent, right? And I have to answer it. And the fourth is tasks that are not important and not urgent. So as you can see from this summary of these 4 parts, the first quadrant is things that we need to do. Second is we schedule and do later. Third quadrant, we try to delegate it to someone else. And fourth, we need to eliminate it. So the general principles of time management is we need to be able to distinguish between what is urgent and not urgent, what is important and what is not important, and then prioritize our time and efforts so that we are effective. So don't put everything in quadrant 1 and don't put anything in then don't put things in quadrant 4 if you can. So the whole focus of this is try to do things in second quadrant because they contribute the most to your long-term success and fulfillment. But you need to effectively manage tasks in the first quadrant, minimize those in quadrants 3 and 4. So the outcome is that we finally need to optimize our time so that we have greater efficiency, we are more effective, and we are a more satisfied person, and professionally, we are more successful. So let me start with urgent and important tasks. So these are activities that have deadlines. If we do too much things in the first quadrant, everything is important, everything is urgent, it will take up all our time. And the things in the first quadrant will grow bigger and bigger and bigger until you have no time to do other activities at all. So the result is you get stressed and burn out. So how do we manage so that our quadrant 1 activities don't get too large? And for me personally, I adopt the bottom line principle. I will look at what is the most important outcome or result or the ultimate objective at this point in time. And then I prioritize my actions to achieve this, and I don't sweat the small stuff. And you can see the picture of a baby trying to eat and messing up the whole table. So what I mean by bottom line principle is when my child was young, is it more important for me to make sure, because he's a premature baby, right? 10 weeks premature. And in the hospital, his weight dropped to 900 grams. So by the time I could bring him home, he was like 1.6 kilogram heavy. He's really small. And as he grew up, he was always small. He had eating difficulty, speaking difficulty. And I have to ask myself, is it more important to make sure food goes into his mouth and give him nutrition? Or is it more important that I teach him the principles of independence and know how to feed himself? So to me, at that point in time, it was more important to get food into his mouth. So this is what I call the bottom line principle. When you have many things to do, look at what is the most important outcome and then do that instead of trying to say that at that point, I must make sure he knows how to be independent and feed himself. Yeah. Okay. So for us as academics, the task that falls into quadrant 1 is really about teaching and how we spend time preparing for our teaching. And what I want to tell you is radical in the sense that I'm asking you to put in just enough time and effort on your teaching materials, and don't spend too much time revising your lecture notes and PowerPoint slides to perfect them. And perfectionism is not a virtue. And if you spend too much time to prepare your lecture notes, Parkinson's law kicks in. And Parkinson's law states that your work will expand to fill up the time allotted for its completion. Meaning, if you have 1 month to prepare your lecture notes and you're not careful, you will spend the whole month doing your lecture notes and not doing your research. So you will then be spending too much time trying to perfect it. And so what I want to offer to you is to go on this concept of minimum viable product, MVP. And in preparing lecture notes, the principle is to make it simple. The mistake that young assistant professors make when preparing their first set of lecture notes is to make it so complicated, like their PhD, that the undergraduates do not understand and will end up giving them a low teaching score. So make it simple. Second is that once your lecture notes is almost there and you spend just enough time on it, you can release that with all the essential features that you're going to teach for that semester. And as you go along, semester after semester, you can make improvements to these course materials when it's offered again. Therefore, what I'm saying is you do not need to, at the first instance, provide a perfect product, but a minimum viable product. And you will say, oh, but then I'm going to get low student ratings, and that will get me into trouble. Well, the answer is that I can assure you, if you are a very serious teacher, your students' ratings of your teaching will improve over the years, because as you repeat the same course in the second semester, the third semester, you will improve. because you have overcome the learning curve. And so I show you here two handphones. You will see that the top one looks old-fashioned and the bottom one is a flip phone that looks really cool, right? So this is the concept of minimum viable product, meaning when Samsung was ready to push out a handphone many, many years ago, it already pushed out the handphone. And as the years go by, Samsung then improved the handphone to what it is today. So similarly, when you are preparing your lecture notes, you can use the same concept of minimum viable product. How to prevent spending too much time on your teaching materials. So not long ago, I was assigned a new subject to teach. So spend some time, like a few weeks or a few months before the actual teaching day, to prepare that minimum product for the first time. And then don't keep on working on it for the whole month. Maybe 1 to 2 weeks before the actual lecture, you do a first revision. And then 1 to 2 days before the actual lecture, you do the second revision. And then you deliver the lecture. And that will be good enough. The next thing I want to share with young academics is about student consultation. I do not know how much pressure you have to engage with students so that they will give you high ratings, but I would say that you should set boundaries and not to give them a 24/7 access. I know of young assistant professors who actually give their students their handphone number, WeChat account, set up a Telegram to be in the same group as them, and WhatsApp group, and then end up having to answer their messages 24/7. Don't do that. And when you are letting them consult, you set the consultation time and the duration, not let them do it. You tell the students which time slot they can sign up, and the picture there shows an online system where students can sign up when to see you. For me personally, I prefer to tell students, please email me with 3 possible time slots for me to choose. And then I will choose one that is convenient to me. And I will limit each consultation session. I will not let them sit in my room to talk to me for 2 hours. I know of a professor who has retired from University of Hong Kong. He set his consultation session to 10 minutes. For mine, I usually set to 30 minutes. And I block off days on my calendar where I do research and students cannot consult me. So you might be wondering, wow, Florence set all these boundaries on her students' access to her. Maybe she is she might be punished with bad teaching scores. Well, Professor Ofori can confirm for me that actually I'm not a bad teacher and students do like me. They are okay when we set boundaries for them. Okay. I now move on to the second part of the quadrant, which is things that are very important, but they are not urgent. And for us, it would be research and publishing our research work. So these are tasks that are important for our long-term success, but may not have immediate deadlines. The tasks are not urgent, but if you invest time in them, you can prevent a crisis from arising. So just now, Professor Adewale shared that she had to rush a few journal papers to be published before she can be promoted to the next level. So sometimes when you do not have enough time to do things in the second quadrant, like publication, these things move to the first quadrant and they become very urgent and very important. Okay. So, but if, and of course, we know why Professor Adewale, what happened, and it caused the shift of research from quadrant 2 to quadrant 1. If we manage our tasks in quadrant 2 well, in quadrant number 2 very well, we will have a perspective, a balanced life, and fewer crises in life, and we are in better control. So how do we manage to put our activities in quadrant 2? We first must figure out what must be done. So this can be some checklists, It can be what is your university's promotion criteria, and you actually should do fewer things, but focus on the more important things. And when must you do it? And what is the standard you must achieve, which is the key performance indicators. For example, your university may say that you must publish in tier 1 journals, tier 2, certain impact factors, etc. So make sure you know all those. So for research, what help? What can help you? First, you need to realize that for all academic staff in which research is as important as teaching, research is on the critical path of your career development. It may look like nobody is chasing you now, but it is the thing that will stop you from getting promoted to the next level. So, and the research process takes a long time. It doesn't look urgent now because there's no deadline, but we need to be opportunity minded. So don't be problem minded. Let me give an example of what problem minded is. Not long ago, I was asked to convert one of my courses to blended learning. And blended learning is a form of teaching where I have a nice, interesting video. My lecture is divided into, like, every lecture is divided into 4 to 5 video clips. They are nice and interesting and fun. And after students watch it on their own, they then answer online quizzes. I go to the online quiz to see which parts they don't understand. And maybe every 2 weeks, I meet them in class to dive deeper. So I have to do videos, I have to do online quiz, and I have to see them in class. So I was quite annoyed that I have to spend so much time doing blended learning. But in order not to see this as a problem, I look for opportunity, how I can convert this to an opportunity. And so I thought of how to publish this as a teaching pedagogy, where I can compare the traditional teaching method, which is classroom, PowerPoint slides, stand in front of the class to lecture, versus a blended learning, which is students learn on their own by watching my videos, and then they answer quizzes and I determine how much they have understood. And so from this, looking at opportunity, I managed to actually publish a journal paper in ASCE on different teaching methods. So the next issue is, the next opportunity-minded task you can do is to do joint authorships with your students. So some of you may have to supervise students for final year projects, and so look for opportunities to publish with them. So for me, for final year projects, I supervise them very, very closely in terms of how they design their questionnaire, how they collect data, and how they analyze data, so that after they have finished their final year project, I then come in to put in my kung fu to transform that piece of work into a journal paper. And the third is collaboration. I think the other speakers have talked about having people networks, so you connect the dots and make your presence felt. And make sure that when you are doing research, you are being very efficient in your research design and data collection. And what I mean is this, when you are designing a questionnaire to collect data, even though your study now is only on X variables, and because your research question is about X variables, there is no harm to insert some Y variables inside, because once you insert Y variables, you can actually write another journal paper where you do regression of Y and X, right? And then think of what are the mediators and the moderators, put a few questions in, and then you have 4 sets of constructs, which you then can actually write 2 to 3 papers out of it. So this is what I mean by efficient research design. Don't keep on collecting a lot of data. Keep on collecting data over and over again because your first set of questionnaire or data collection instrument only contain a certain set of variables. And in terms of research, especially when I'm an assistant professor with a very sick child who is underweight and could not speak until he's 4 years old, I really set aside time to do research. So there is time that I block off to think, to design my research, to do data analysis, to collect data, to analyze, and to write. And each of us have our own factory setting on when is a good time for us to do research. Some of you may want, for me, it's like every afternoon, I do my research. Some of you may want to block off a whole day, like every Thursday, that you do research. So you decide based on what your factory setting is and what works best for you. And you will be wondering, but it's so inflexible to set aside. Well, if you do not schedule time for research, you might not do enough of it, and you end up not having enough papers for your promotion. I've also met assistant professors who spend a lot of time writing proposals for research grants. And even as they are handling one grant now and doing research, or the grant is finishing, they are writing the second grant and the third grant. And then when I ask them, right, okay, you have 1 million US dollars of grants, but where is your research outcome? So you need to find time to write your research outcomes into papers, just as you spend time in writing for grants. So there must be a balance and not just do one or the other. Even though I say that you need to have plans and all this, but your plans still should be flexible and adaptable. And don't let the plan be your servant. Plan should be your servant and not your master. And you need to adapt to seasons of life. So as Ruhama shared with us when she's a young mother, that season of her life, I think she took 1 year off. And Prof. Adewale had to step back a bit to take care of her husband. So seasons of life, but don't give up your scheduled time for doing tasks in quadrants 3 and 4. Meaning when you have scheduled time for research, don't ever give up that time to go shopping, because that would be scheduled quadrant number 4, or to answer WhatsApp messages that are not urgent. Okay, I'll stick to that. As an assistant professor, I had a very punishing schedule. I teach a full load as a lecturer or an assistant professor. And there are days that when I'm not teaching, I block it off to do research. I send my son to the childcare. At 5 o'clock, I pick him up from his childcare, 5 to 6 o'clock, and I will play with him until about 7 p.m. or so. Then we have family dinner. I will then continue talking to him and interacting with him until 9 p.m. and I'll put him to bed. Like, I don't care how you do it, but 9 o'clock you go to sleep, right? Then from 9 to 10, I go to the bedroom and spend 1 hour with my husband. Whatever he wants to talk to me, I will be there in body and in spirit with a presence to talk to him. And at 10 o'clock, I jump up and come to my computer. And from 10 p.m., I write non-stop to midnight or 1 a.m. And this happens every day of my life as an assistant professor, with some exceptions, which I will share with you soon. I move now to the third quadrant, which is urgent tasks, but not important. And this will be some admin duties, replying to some unimportant emails and messages. So these are interruptions in life, in your day. Some people, when they are doing things in quadrant 3, they thought they are doing things in quadrant 1, but that's not true. In reality, urgency of matters is based on your priority and what others expect of you. Sometimes you feel that, oh, you must answer emails quickly, otherwise people think that you are not a good person. Yeah, so don't do that. If you do too much things in the third quadrant, you'll be very short-term focused. You feel victimized and out of control because so many urgent things to do, and yet these things are not important. So to manage quadrant 3 and to reduce the activities in quadrant 3, you need to delegate the task to free up the time to do important things and limit the time you spend in quadrant 3. So some of you might already know The Tyranny of the Urgent. This is by Charles Hummel. It is a reactive behavior where we prioritize tasks perceived as urgent over things that are truly important. Just because something is urgent doesn't mean it is important, right? So what we will end up doing is we ignore important tasks like our research because we are every day busy doing urgent things, and then it will affect our long-term success, our personal goal, and our strategic objectives. So the outcome is important tasks get neglected and postponed indefinitely. And what will happen if you always let urgent things take priority in your life is you become inefficient, stressed, and you feel a lack of fulfillment. So some solutions to overcome the tyranny of the urgent is to know how to prioritize tasks, which is what we've just learned in the 4 quadrants. So there's this time management matrix that you know, differentiate between urgent, not urgent, important, not important. Then think of what is your long-term value and focus on them. Use the bottom line principle, which I shared with you just now. And then there is the quadrant 4, which you must really avoid. Unimportant tasks and still not urgent, and still sometimes we are doing it. So these are time-wasting activities, but sometimes we do it because we want to have escape, but we are wasting time. Important things are not done, and then we become dependent on others to do things for us. So to manage this, we need to minimize or eliminate activities in this quadrant, and you have to think of what you need to eliminate that is not priority. So I show you this, which is a screen capture from my handphone. It shows me on a certain day, I was spending 4 hours on my handphone, of which one and a half hours was on Google Chrome. You can see at the bottom there. 1 hour on Samsung Notes and 33 minutes on WhatsApp. So I console myself by saying that the 1 hour on Samsung Notes, I was actually typing about things to do, planning for things in life, reflecting on things, and writing my journal. So should be okay, yeah. But the 1 hour, 30 minutes on Chrome is a bit too much in a day. So where should we be? So we need to spend the most time in quadrant 2 and stay out of quadrants 3 and 4 and shrink the task in quadrant 1. So how to have more time? We need time to do important tasks. So how to have more time? When you are doing important tasks, avoid task switching. Task switching is a killer of productivity. For example, last week I was amending a journal paper because it came back from the reviewers. So it's a really important task. And to avoid task switching, I need to turn off my emails and all my messaging apps so that I only focus on amending the journal paper, and I don't switch between amend one item, check my email, amend the second item, check my WhatsApp. Okay, so when I'm doing very important tasks, I will set time. Every 3 hours only I check my email, and I don't reply my emails throughout the day. If it comes in after 2 p.m. and not urgent, it gets replied the next day. The exception, of course, is emails that belongs to the first quadrant. I also manage online messaging, how frequently I check and reply, and I have different notification sounds. My husband and son has a very special sound that when my handphone WhatsApp has this sound, I know I have to check because these two men are so important in my life. But other people have a different sound, and group chats have no sound. I will check when I want to check. I silence them. And when I set up group chats, I give rules on what people can or cannot do in the group chat. They absolutely cannot say good morning and good night in the group chat, because if your group has 34 people and everybody say good morning and good night, there'll be 34 times 2 every day, right? Then the other way is important thing to have more time is to know how to say no. And how do we say no? Firstly, it's okay to say no when necessary. And we need to say no so that we don't overextend ourselves. We must say no to tasks in Q1, first quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant. So for the first quadrant task, if you are being given too many courses to teach, or the courses constantly change, then you need to find a way to tell your boss no. And how to say no is firstly appreciate the boss, thank him or her. Thank you for your confidence in me to assign me 5 courses to teach in a year, and then tell him or her why you cannot do it with data. In our department, everybody only teach 1.5 courses a year, but now I have 5. Or in our department, people teach the same course for 3 years, but now in 2 years, I have 5 courses. So use data to say why you cannot do it, and then say it pleasantly with a smile. And then there is a question of whether should you do admin work. If you are a junior hire, do a little bit of admin work to show that you have corporate citizenship behavior, and to do some networking and to have visibility, but don't do too much of it. And deadline. This is what I learned from Professor Ofori. When we tell him, Prof, the deadline is 5 p.m. today, and he will smile at us like he's not even worried, because deadlines are fixed by men, right, and women. So ask for deadlines when appropriate. Family life falls into all 4 quadrants. So time is like a 1-pound cake. How you slice it, all of us have only 24 hours to slice. So you must slice it carefully, what you want to give priority to. And the second is the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. Do things that only add value for you in the family, to be a spouse, parent, or child, and always spend quality time over quantity. Delegate and outsource things that do not add value for your existence, of your 3-in-1 existence. Your 3-in-1 is you are one person, you are a wife or a husband, you are also a parent to your child, and you are also a daughter or son to your parents. And actually it's 4-in-1 because you also go to work as a professor or lecturer. So you don't have to do everything, as what Ruhama has shared. Don't be afraid to ask for help, delegate and outsource. So transfer responsibility to others who are more experienced and skilled. Tell them what is the desired result you want, monitor the outcome, but don't micromanage them, trust them. So, but don't delegate tasks to your boss. Your boss will be very upset with you, but instead ask your boss for resources, or say no to your boss nicely. And however, before I end, I must say that finding balance in teaching, research, and family life is not just about time management, as we have heard from the first 2 speakers. You need to do self-care activities to take care of yourself so that you don't get a meltdown or mental health problems. And for me, every week I will spend 24 hours away from work. Even when I was doing my PhD and I was an assistant professor, I have a Sabbath rest once a week. And then you set up a proper people system, which both the two speakers before me have talked about to help you. And the third for me is to have a secret weapon that is beyond me, larger than me, stronger than me, a powerful force beyond myself, which for me is God, but for you, you have to find what is that powerful force or weapon outside of yourself to help you. And I spend time to abide in my God. And so in summary, time management is to actually not manage time, but manage your task based on your priorities. And you prioritize the task based on urgency and importance. You reduce activities in third and fourth quadrant and do more in the second quadrant. And for teaching, to balance our teaching, research, and family, for teaching, put in just enough time to give a minimum viable product and then upgrade it every year and every semester. For research, you need to schedule for it and just do it already. Stop talking about it, but just do it and keep plugging. And for family life, think of the Pareto principle. 20% of what you do contributes to 80% of the outcome. Choose to do those and then delegate, outsource as much as you can. And so these are the two references that I've used to prepare today's talk. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Prof, for your insightful lecture. Thank you for sharing from your wealth of experience. Prof has spoken extensively about how to manage time. Just to quickly recap, he talked about the fact that we need to focus on the tasks with the most important outcome. We can't do everything. We need to look for those that have important outcomes. Then when she talked about teaching, we should make our teaching simple. We don't need to impress anybody, particularly when we are younger breeds. We don't need to impress our students by that, making our lectures more complicated. Then for research, we need to create time deliberately, purposely for research, else we'll never do anything. You know, someone once said that the secrets of men are in their stories, and we heard how Prof talked about the fact that 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. she was dedicating to research. You know, it's just like a seed. When you plant a seed, whatever you plant, you sow. So she was planting these for years. In spite of, you know, the peculiarities that she had, you know, she still maintained that time for research. And we are not surprised at the outcome of the impact of her research today. And then she talked about the fact that we need to stay on tasks that are not urgent but important. As it's quadrant 2, we need to focus on tasks on quadrant 2. And then it's also very okay to say no, and we do that politely. That made me laugh. To say no politely, and then yes, and we should prioritize. Basically, thank you so much, Prof. I know we'll go back and listen to these nuggets to improve our time management skills. Thank you so much, Prof. At this time, we'll quickly take our pictures before we move on to the last panelist. So we'll just quickly take our pictures. Annabelle, are you in the house? Yes, I can see you. So can you help us with the pictures? Yes. Yeah. Please give me some few minutes. Please, could everyone turn on their videos? Okay.
Sorry, I'm in my 90s. It's about 12 midnight.
Okay. It's okay.
So can we all say Waik? Waik, please.
Why?
Can we all say Waik?
Why?
Why?
Why? Please, some of you don't have your videos turned on. Okay, thank you very much. Please, I'm done.
Okay, Annabelle, are you good? Are you fine? Are you okay? Is it?
Yeah, I'm done.
Are you done?
Yes,
Oh,
please.
good. Thanks so much for helping us with the pictures. So we'll quickly go take the last but not the least panelist now. Sanchia, are you set, please?
Yes,
Oh,
can you
thank
hear me?
Yes, we can. We can.
Yes, I'm just going to share a presentation with you. Give me 1 second. And let me get that on the full screen for you. Okay. Oh, good morning, everybody. Good morning. A real pleasure to be here this morning with you all. And I wanted to talk about increasing diversity and how we support women in the workplace as a HR and diversity professional. So really the summary of what I'll be talking about is focused on these strategies and what I would like companies to achieve. So I have some general principles, but a purposeful focus on tackling gender inequality and closing those gender pay gaps. So improving recruitment practices to increase the diversity of women, particularly at the top of our organizations, the training, the mentoring and the CPD, continuous professional development can be used to nurture staff to move up, identifying the progression opportunities and the barriers to staff and our women reaching the top. Organizations need to think about what policies are needed to support culture change and foster an inclusive organization and leveraging staff networks, the path to closing our gender and ethnicity pay gaps. So just a little bit about me. I'm a multi-award winning specialist in equality, diversity and human resources. And I've worked in this field for over 16 years across the public and charity sector. So I work towards moving organizations towards being truly inclusive, valuing their staff and creating a culture where staff feel supported, appreciated and respected. Alongside my consultancy, I currently work as the Head of Equality, Diversity and Inclusion at London South Bank University as well. So just a little bit about me. So how do we move the dial forward and what are the steps that organisations can take to put diversity commitments into practice? And I think this is really important because the initiatives that companies come up with will really have a difference. And there is an increasing pressure for change. Many of the organizations that we work in may have made statements and may have made commitments towards gender equality. But it would be interesting to hear whether we feel that these have translated into tangible actions. Inequality is still rife, and we've heard it through our eminent guest speakers today. So it's clear that women still face widespread discrimination, inequality, and underrepresentation at work, particularly at the senior levels. And so women also can sometimes report or experience discrimination, harassment, or bullying in the workplace as well. But in order for our organizations to benefit from the wealth of diverse talent on offer, they're going to have to look at how they tackle gender inequality in a multifaceted way. Appointing an executive sponsor for gender and other diversity champions is a good start. They will need to think about how they get staff buying at all levels of their organizations, which will be key to implementing any diversity agenda. And it's really important that our organizations have visible leaders, visible female leaders to make the case for action, engage with staff, and to set gender equality targets. So our organisations need to think about if there are any barriers to diverse recruitment and seek to remove any conscious or unconscious bias from the recruitment process. There are some places that use blind recruitment. There are both pros and cons to this. But I think all of our organisations need to think about how they broaden the potential recruitment pool. So think about where the roles are advertised, because if they keep advertising in the same place, they're going to get the same response. At London South Bank University, we've worked with an external supplier to optimise the content of our job adverts to enable us to speak to a wider range of candidates, ensuring that our tone and language is right, working to reduce bias in our language. Because, for example, what we notice is when certain jobs are advertised, for example, it might be a counsellor, the language of the job advert is feminised, and that can have an impact on who applies. I've also done training for our human resources team in inclusive recruitment, because the recruitment team are at the coalface of a lot of this. Capturing gender data and publicising progress. So there's a saying that what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So in order for us to identify where the underrepresentation lies or where the disadvantage lies, our organisations need to capture gender data. Data shines a light on where the issues are and will enable our organisations to identify priorities and set targets. And over time, they can then measure that progress and identify any trends in the data. And here in the UK, we have a mandatory regulation from the government to publish a gender pay gap if an organisation is over 250 staff. And so we published this for many years. You can find it on our website. And this enables us to put in place targeted initiatives to close the gap and go above and beyond the gender requirements. And so if you don't know what your gender pay gap is, even if you don't have a government regulation to do this, this might be something you might want to consider. Encouraging participation in both internal and external women's networks. So these can help create an inclusive environment and give women a safe space to share their experiences and express themselves. It's really important that our organisations hear from the lived experiences of their female staff. And staff networks or employee resource groups will give our organisations the opportunity to do that, and also help them to monitor whether staff feel that change is happening on the ground. Organisations can also gauge staff feedback from appraisals, surveys and questionnaires. So at London South Bank University, we ask specific diversity questions in our employee survey, which allow us to analyse the trends year on year and see how staff feel about specific diversity issues. A programme of diversity training. So a modern and up-to-date suite of training that addresses the issues that our organisations are facing are really important. And some of these will need to be tailored for different audiences. So for example, at London South Bank University, we will have like gender training for our board, for senior leadership teams across the various academic schools and corporate services. And this should be a regular activity rather than a passive activity. Managers having a responsibility for supporting workplace equality. So this starts at the very top. So at London South Bank University, we have the corporate strategy, which has diversity key performance indicators, which links into our diversity strategy, which I wrote, which has additional measures feeding in. So staff's performance objectives could include diversity key performance indicators to encourage cultural change. So for example, assessing improved scoring for a team in a survey. Taking action that supports ethnic and women career progression. So having mentoring programs in place for women, considering reverse mentoring and sponsorships, having positive action programs, and all of these programs have follow-up activities in our organisations and monitoring to see if real change is actually taking place. And committing to zero tolerance of bullying and harassment. So having a robust bullying and harassment policy, having bullying and harassment advisors, which we have here at London South Bank University, and options for staff to report confidently and safely. The aim should not be only to prevent illegal conduct, but also to prevent all forms of disrespectful behaviour and decisions that could contribute to a discriminatory or hostile environment for staff or even our students, and to take appropriate action where any complaints are raised. At London South Bank University, we have a behavioural framework, and inclusion and diversity is a key pillar of this. And there are different expectations depending on the seniority of the job. So for managers, for example, who lead teams, we expect them to role model inclusive behaviours that they would expect to see in others. So that's everything that I wanted to say today. So I wanted to end by saying that while there is still much progress to be made to address gender inequality in the workplace, the agenda is gaining traction. And organisations that wish to take meaningful action to tackle some of the barriers currently in place and make good on their diversity and inclusion commitments need to take a multifaceted approach. Fundamental to success will be capturing gender data to focus the organisation's priorities and demonstrating commitment from the very top. So thank you for this really important conference that we've been able to share, and thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Sanchia, for sharing those with us from your wealth of experience. She did talk about how organizations can actually create an inclusive ambience for their workers. She talked about profiling, gender profiling, that is having gender statistics, so we know the situation of gender in each organizations, particularly now talking about the academia. She also talked about the need for diversity training, committing to zero tolerance of harassment and bullying, and managers should be mandated to support workplace diversity. Thank you again for those. We're really grateful. The floor is open. We could have questions. We can now have questions and contributions and comments. We can address any of those to any of the panelists, or if you want to ask general questions or make general comments. The floor is now open. We can raise our hands, or we can just type our questions in the chat box. Yes, someone trying to speak.
Dr. Miju.
Okay. Dr. Ntembo.
Okay. She coming around me. She coming.
Dr. Ntembo, your hands up. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I have.
Yes, I'm very sure you're controlling the family. I just want to hang around because I want to pick my daughter for one.
Sorry, please. I just need to meet that person. Sorry.
Oh,
Okay. Can I go now?
Yes, please. Please go ahead, Prof.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you for a very informative session. I think it's very important that we talk about these issues because they affect people. And I think as women, like I said in the chat box, one of our biggest challenges is setting boundaries. And when the boundaries are set, making sure that we enforce them. And by that, I mean, sometimes saying no becomes one of the most difficult issues to say. But I think drawing from Ruhama's presentation, the value of the peer support network for young professionals is very important, because at that point where you need to enforce your boundaries, you need to make sure that there is no power play around you, and that there are people who know what is expected and who will support what you're saying. Because ultimately, as women, especially within the construction environment, there's a very strong need to support each other, because it really is a relatively unwelcoming world for women practitioners. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for that contribution. Yes, do we have other contributions? I think there's one in the chat, referring to Professor Florence. As a member of the university faculty hiring committee, what aspects of criteria would you prioritize when evaluating candidates for a new lecturer position at your university? How will you weigh and rank the importance of research interest, research outputs, teaching, research impact, and funding?
Thank you, Dr. Chen, for attending this talk and also asking this question. When the university advertises for a position, it usually knows exactly what is the area that it needs. And so that would be the first thing, which is the research interest that must be aligned. The applicant's research interest must be aligned with what the position is advertised for. So that is number one. Once that position is aligned, the next is to look at, the committee will look at research publications, and we look at what tier the journals, the candidate has published in. The tier of the journal is very important. So that would be because the tier of the journal tells us the research impact, and other measures. And once we pass this second gate, we then think that we are ready to see the candidate. So we invite the candidate to campus to give a talk, a job talk. And the candidate has two talks. One is to talk to academics for us to assess the teaching ability, the research capability and teaching ability. And the second talk is to give a lecture to the students to see if they welcome, they can understand this this potential new hire. So with that, we will then write a report to say if this person is suitable for hire. For a junior hire, we do not look at funding, research funding.
Okay, I hope your question has been answered. I have a little concern, or is it a little concern? I would like Professor Ling to help clarify or to help advise. At times, it's difficult to really, some young academics, female academics now, they use this work-life balance thing as an excuse, an alibi, as an excuse for not working hard. Okay, they make the excuse every time, my children, family, and then they are not using it as an excuse. And we've seen from your story how that you had a very trying, your early days were very trying for you, yet you still put in all you could put. But time and time again, we see some of these young mentees using that as an alibi. Your family, there's an issue, and then it goes on and on and on and on, and then at the end of no progress is really being done. So what advice would you have for those academics?
I want to invite Professor Ofori to answer this. I don't have colleagues I'm the only female in my department, so no man will come and say that they have to take care of their children.
But no, I wasn't referring to men, women now. They are women, they're ladies.
Yeah.
They are ladies.
Because I'm the only female in my department,
okay.
I do not have experience with other females who come and tell me that they have family, baby, this and that. So maybe some of you who have this experience could answer. I'm not able to answer this. If Professor Ofori is still in, maybe Professor Ofori can answer.
I'm in, but I think actually this question is a question for Sanchia, because at LSBU there is very careful consideration of gender, and so there's actually a panel that looks at gender issues when it comes to promotion, when it comes to especially promotion, yes, and when there are any issues that need very careful thought about equality, this panel is brought in. So consideration is given, and also even in your application for promotion, there is a space where you can indicate the extent to which either being a mother or caring for someone who has been ill and so on actually has affected your chances of promotion. And this is taken into, it's not just there for show, it's actually taken into consideration. So well, maybe you can actually address this question to Sanchia, and she will respond later on. Yeah, and this is not only for LSBU. Many universities in the UK actually have that, because it's actually something that you must do. The law requires you to be very careful of particular protected characteristics of people, and you must actually show that you are dealing with these as well. And these kinds of committees are what you can show as an attempt by you to address these features of people. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you for your response. But I'm thinking that on the side of the looking at it corporately. I'm now looking at it from the individual person that is involved, that comes up with an excuse every time, and that the reason why I'm not moving, the reason why I'm not progressing is because there's this challenge and there's that challenge. I'm just leveraging on the stories we've heard now from our panelists. Most of them had very trying times, but they still, made the best they could in those situations. So I was just saying, if there could be advice for such people, because honestly, challenges will definitely come. We can't keep making the excuse every time that we have these challenges and then not moving. Yeah, that was what I was trying to say. So I don't know if anyone wants to. Okay. CJ, yes, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My voice is audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you, Professor Florence. I would like to ask a couple of questions. I'm totally agreed with that. Time management it's all about task management. So a person who had a good time manager, a person who had a good task manager, it leads for effective planning, because those time management as well as task management lead for effective planning, right? So in your university or as personal, what kind of digital tools you were used for a time management or task management? Nowadays, we do have a lot of digital tools, right? To remind your task as well as to remind your schedules. So what kind of digital tools you were used to manage your time as well as to manage your task? Thank you.
Yes. My answer is that I use my email Outlook and schedule my activities into the Outlook's calendar. And I actually echo what Professor Glass from University College London shared the last time she was speaking, that everything that she must do goes into her e-calendar. It doesn't get hang somewhere by itself. So I schedule things into the calendar and I merge it with my Outlook, my email Outlook. Yeah. Besides that, my handphone has got a reminder, and I will put important things to remind myself. So I just have these two. I don't use fanciful apps to schedule things.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we still have other questions? Okay. There's one from Shane. Regarding your PhD students, do you usually guide them towards specific career paths for after graduation? For example, do you recommend academic roles for those who are qualified or well prepared, or suggest industry positions for those better suited to them? As their PhD supervisor, how do you assess which students are qualified or well prepared for research-oriented careers?
We do not have a very formal procedure to guide our PhD students. Usually, the PhD student would have developed a close relationship with the supervisor, and the PhD student then becomes the supervisor becomes moves from being a PhD supervisor to a mentor. And so for Professor Ofori and me, I would just go to him and tell him what I think I want to do and then get his views. But Professor Ofori does not come down and bear on me and tell me what I should be doing. Unless I have lost my way, then maybe he will speak to me. So for Sichen, I would say that instead of waiting for your main PhD supervisor to guide you, you approach the PhD supervisor. So I need to declare here that I'm one of the joint external supervisor for Sichen, who has posted this question. So it would be very funny for me to tell Sichen that, hey, schedule a Zoom session with me. I want to talk to you. But it will be totally natural if it's the other way around. For Sichen, as my PhD student, to a former PhD student because she has graduated, to write to me and say, Florence, can I have a Zoom session with you for 1 hour? I want to talk about this. And then I'll be so happy to talk to her. So it's the other way around and not a top-down from the supervisor. If there are careers that I think are available and suitable, yes, I would point out to my PhD, former PhD students and tell them to apply. I may also tell them not to apply to certain places if I think they are not suitable for them.
Thank you so much for that response. We have one again saying, thanks for your presentation. Every day I plan to manage them, but I can't balance those three things: teaching, research, and family life. Can we put percentage share for each of them according to your experience, daily, weekly basis?
Is this question for me also?
I think it's for you. You spoke about balance and I think it's for you.
Okay, I think the answer is it depends on the season of your life. Yeah. So at the time that I gave birth to my premature baby, I was given 2 months of maternity leave. So during that time, I would be like doing research almost full time and then visiting him in the ICU during visiting hours. And then when I'm an assistant professor, I make sure that I prepare my notes and get them ready somewhere, but don't look at them every day. And then all the other time is to do research. For my child is very fixed because I put him in the childcare. So I play with him from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. So I hope that helps. Like you have a structure in your brain, what time to what time is for what, and then at which season of your life, instead of just saying that everybody should spend 1/3 on each of them. Now my child is 26 years old. So he doesn't need me anymore. I'm now a mother on demand. If he wants to talk to me, he walks out of his room to talk to me. If he doesn't, then I can spend all that time doing research, right?
Thank you. I hope that helps, Sanchia. Yes. Do we still have any more questions or contributions? Yes.
Hello, everyone. Excuse me. Okay. Thank you very much to all the speakers. I just want to support what everyone has said, from Ruhama to Dr. Adewale and Dr. Florence. And I want to pick it from my own experience because, I mean, when Prof was speaking, I mean, she talked about factory setting, and I had to post that I like that factory setting aspect of it. So, I mean, at that factory setting, if I need to highlight on it, yeah, we have different builds, different thresholds, different ways that we can manage task, our energy level and everything. And if I bring it from my family point of view, which everybody has touched on at different ways, it impacts their ways in their activities. I mean, when I got married, my husband is a kind of family-oriented person to the core. So we had to discuss, and he had to tell me, please, can you just set aside your career pursuit for these children? So I found myself like spending like 10 years away from career. I mean, focusing on the children. And it was a bit challenging for me, but because of my architectural background, I had to start, producing bedspread, supplying stores, supplying hotels, supplying everywhere, and trying to navigate my way just to get myself, involved in things. And after, when my last child was now 3 years old, it was the one that now called me, Madam, I think you now have to start, to go. If you want to fly, I will support you. Even at that point in time, I was a bit relaxed, but he had to support me. And to the glory of God, from master's to PhD, I'm grateful to God. So what I'm trying to say in essence is I'm not trying to discourage people or to discredit what all the presenters have said. But if maybe there's someone in there, maybe doesn't want to talk and it feels like, oh, with everything that everybody is saying, I don't feel these people understand my challenge. I don't feel these people understand what I'm going through. And you feel maybe you just want to maybe take a step away for some few periods. It depends on how long you want to. With people around you, I don't know, I think it could help. I'm just telling you my story now. That's just my own contribution I felt I should share with the house. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercy, for that contribution. We have a question here. What would you advise master's students, especially those writing their thesis, who also wish to continue with a PhD position immediately after?
Is that for me too?
I think so.
Okay, so you must thoroughly enjoy your master's thesis writing and data collection. It's like, wow, this is the best thing that has happened in my life that I did not even know it exists. And then you probably can go on to your PhD. If you are struggling and find that writing a master's thesis is so difficult, then maybe PhD should not be done immediately. It is a quiet pace. Okay, then there's the next question. Before I go to the next question, I want to just share with the house that I don't want you to go away thinking that I'm still slogging like that, okay? Because at the start of my talk, I say that I contextualize it to my time as an assistant professor. I am now an old woman who can enjoy the fruits of my labor. So I try not to do work at night now because I don't need to prove anything to anybody anymore. So I do have much more time for myself nowadays. Yeah. Okay, let's see what is the next question.
I think it's a comment. I think it's a comment from Fumi Rotimi. It's a comment. So we've almost come full circle. I don't know if there's anyone has any comments to make before we shut down today. Any comments or any more questions? Okay, thank you everyone again for having for joining in with us. So we'll just quickly take the vote of thanks. Let's have the vote of thanks. Ms. Esther Alabi.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Patience. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank God, we thank God we've come to the end of this webinar. and we want to appreciate all our panelists. Let me first appreciate Professor Florence Ling. Thank you for your insightful presentation. Very impactful. And I know that everyone here has actually gained from your presentation. Your experience as cited is very, very beneficial to us. And what Dr. Patience was asking the other time regarding those younger academics, female academics who are in service, trying to give excuse as per the work-life balance. Your experience and that of, I think, Dr. Mercy, or the second panelist, is actually a very good example, a very good role model to follow, because despite all the challenges, they were able to sail through. I want to thank Sanchia. Thank you for your insightful presentation. Thank you, Dr. Bukola Adewale. So also Ruhama Bayeni. All our panelists today are well-seasoned academics who have narrated their experiences and given us worthy presentation that will actually see us through whatever we are doing, whether you are a master's student or you're doing your research as a PhD. I would just implore us all to go over and over the presentation so that we will take a glimpse of whatever will benefit us more, whatever challenges we're going through. I am sure with this webinar, you will find solution to the challenge. The webinar has been very, very loaded, and we thank God for this. Let me mention that this is our second year. I don't know whether Dr. Patience has mentioned it, but we are actually celebrating the second anniversary of our webinar, of our association, the Women Academics in Construction. We thank God for this. And we want to also thank all our speakers, our guest speakers, our panelists from the beginning. We want to say thank you. We're not forgetting all our participants, all those who have been joining in all our webinars. We want to say thank you. And we want to thank our board of directors. We want to thank all those who have been behind the scene. I want to especially thank Dr. Patience. I thank God for you. Thank you so much for this wonderful work you are doing. I'm sure you are seeing the impact. Every one of us are feeling it, and we are experiencing the essence of what you're doing. And I want to recognize that it has cut across even the female gender. I want to thank Professor Fori. Thank you, sir, for always being with us. And we have some like that too, some men who has been there for us, who has been participating. And I really want, that's why I really appreciate the second panelist. He mentioned the 3 ways, the support, all of our presenters mentioned, but she emphasized the three-way support system we've been enjoying, the God factor, the men. So when she mentioned the men, that means both male and female, both gender. But then we want to especially thank our men, the men. So that's why I'm mentioning Professor Flori. And I want to also mention all our men, all our husbands, our spouses that have assisted us to get to the position we all are in today. I also have that experience of that. The last speaker, I think, is a Mercy. I've said it on this platform before, that for about more than 10 years, my husband told me to just go and relax and be taking care of the children. So I had to do what I could do. For the first 10 years or thereafter, so I was with the construction industry. Later, I had to wait till my children get older before I now came back really to continue with my career. So, and then just as he released me, he was just supporting me all the way till date. So we want to thank all our men, our spouses for what they are doing. Let me mention that, I'm sorry, I'm taking a little time, what Prof said when she was allocating time, her time to her family, to her work, how she set her time. I really appreciate what she mentioned, that by 9 o'clock, she will give time to her husband till 10 o'clock. I took that because sometimes I go away, I deviate. So we really need to work on our time management, have time for everyone, despite our tight schedule. And I would love all females, all our female academics to please take note of this. When we give time for them, we don't put all the time for our children and for our career and other things. If we set out that time for them, they will go all out to support us in every way. So I want to thank all the panelists once again. I appreciate you. We appreciate you. And I want to say that I know that all the participants will make use of what you have trained us and take a cue from your experience that you have given us. Despite all odds, husband with health challenges, children, different challenges, we have to forge ahead. So thank you all. Thank you for standing by us for the past 2 years. We thank God so far. Hitherto the Lord has helped us, and we know that the future is brighter. So with this, we are grateful, and I want to appreciate everyone once again. Thank you, and we thank God. Over to you, Dr. Patience.
Thank you so much, and here's Olade. Thank you for putting everything in proper context. Thank you very much. Yes, it's true. Why it will be 2 years this week, 29th of March precisely. It's been 2 impactful years, 2 interesting years, and we are thankful that we are seeing a lot of impact. Younger women now, advancing well in their career, their support, and I know we'll be able to do more, but we're just thankful for what we've started to see, and that this has not been in vain, and we're thankful to God for helping us. And we're also very thankful for the gift of people. I mean now, Professor Fori, Professor Ling, Dr. Tembo, and all of you that have just even joined in to support this vision. We appreciate every one of you for supporting and standing by us. And we know that the coming years will be much, much brighter. And on this note, we would like to say goodbye. And of course, we'll be up again next month with another insightful webinar. Thank you again for joining in. Best wishes. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.